So explain to us, in terms of getting a license or applying to get a license, what is the cost and what does that entail?
So if you just read in black and white, the application process this time around costs, well, in Maryland specifically, costs $2,000 per application. Now, that may not seem like, well, to some people it may seem like a lot. You know, that's a
Mm.
barrier in itself, just $4,000 applying for those licenses. But to really have a shot, you know, you need somebody in your corner who's a lawyer. You need to have, you know, an accountant who can uh, get some good performance going for you.
Hmm.
And then you really need some type of a basic procurement knowledge to be able to even complete this application. You know, so on a range of what I've seen people spend during these application periods have been from that 4,000 all the way up to $1 million.
Wow.
And yeah, and that's why, you know, this is getting a license, especially for minorities who, you know, don't necessarily have access to the type of capital that's needed to operate businesses like this. It's tough, you
Hmm.
know, for folks to just break in, even when we do have an opportunity, because then it's like, okay, well, who are we turning to get the money that we need anyways, you know?
Hmm.
Right back to the majority in most occasions. So it's interesting. I think that we do have an opportunity to see ourselves pushing forward within this industry, but it is important for us to, you know, truly understand what really goes into it. And it's not just that $4,000 that you need to actually put forth an application fee, but, you know, to make sure your application is prepared properly. There are some folks who have paid 150 to 250,000, 300,000 to get their applications written for them. You know,
Wow.
so that's, and then even aside from the money that you're spending to you know, get your application together, the competition is high. You know,
Mm.
there are very few of these licenses. They only had this round 4 growers and 10 processor licenses, and with that, you know, all these people are spending all this money, but you still only have a lottery chance to win. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
um,
Because in Canada they have a lottery system, so I think the license fee is 100,000, and even though you apply again, it's a lottery. So basically, they'll pick who gets the license. So even though you may have all the criteria, you might not get it because there was a girl who was 19 who applied. Her father had the money, and she ended up getting the license. And all these big companies wanted to start working with her to open her dispensary because she got the license, and she was the only one. I think it was some part of Toronto. So the process is definitely difficult, I think, all around, but I think even more difficult, as you just said, for minorities.
Hey, Kevin, this is Ro. I had a quick question for you.
uh,
Um, I'm thinking about return on investment. I'm also thinking about what happens to this initial capital that people put into getting their license on these fees. You mentioned there's so few slots and it's so highly competitive. What happens to that money if you do not get picked? I mean, is it held in a bureaucratic limbo forever, or is that returned to you at some point? Can you speak to that a little bit?
so so well, all of the money technically is risk money. Like if you're putting it up, you're losing it. That $2,000 application fee, the bare minimum, is a non-refundable fee that goes to the state for your application.
Okay.
And then all the other dollars that's spent, you know, from that 4,000 up to $1 million is, you know, definitely lost because you're paying consultants, you're paying professionals to, you know, better your chances on winning.
So this
It's
is
really a gambling game.
Yeah, this isn't the slam dunk. It sounds like in other circles where they discuss this. This is not for the faint of heart.
Correct.
This is a courageous endeavor to get involved with. So it's not like
It is.
you know, people like weed and you can sell weed legally, so go ahead and make your money. Not at all, right?
Exactly. And then that's half the battle too, because even like the young lady in Canada that you just mentioned who won a license in Canada, you know, she had access to capital, you know, and I
Yeah,
think that
yeah,
that is
yeah.
the the difference that we're seeing, because you can have a great application and say you want to grow, and you know, even if it's a 5,000 square foot building, you still got to go find a 5,000 square foot building, buy it or lease it, and be able to actually operate a successful business that's going to allow you to sustain within the business. And that's one thing that I'm worried about, even with just having a round specifically tailored for minorities, is like we got to make sure that they also pick minorities who are going to be able to hold it down, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
because this business, as you said, is not for the faint of heart. Like, this is the most cutthroat business that I think that I've ever stuck my nose in,
Say
and that
that. Say
includes
that.
like
Say that
politics.
again. It's the most what?
This is the most cutthroat industry,
Okay. Okay.
period.
Okay.
Because you have to understand, we're coming to a, you know, this is a generational wealth shift, you
Mm.
know, and folks are trying to do everything they can to ensure that we are not the holders of this, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's just 100% important for us to, you know, if we're going to be betting all this money, we need to be betting money behind people who can actually do this, and not necessarily just taking a chance because you think you want to be the man, you know.
Mm. So
That
how does uplift? Sorry, Rose.
no,
Actually,
go
Ro,
ahead.
go ahead. I got a longer question, so go ahead.
No, yeah, brief question. You know, so everything you just wow, that's eye opening. That really peels back the curtain and lets us see a different side of this thing that's not commonly referred to in magazine articles or news reports when you're saying this is cutthroat. And so I just had a quick question. You know, when it's this highly competitive to get involved, and there are only so few slots, is this the bureaucracy trying to the slow things down so they can figure out a way to best handle and control it? Are they really picking who they want to have access to this opportunity? Because, like you said, it is a general wealth building engine. And so,
Yeah.
is it that the bureaucracy wants to control it because it still has that stigma of cannabis, and people still don't know how they really feel about it? But there's a want and a need for it. So they're trying to slow this down so they can figure out how to best manage it for the benefit of the state and the people? Or are they really, do you feel like picking and choosing who's going to get these opportunities?
So just because I have applied for a license myself, and I do have faith in the commission to make the right decision, um, I do believe that they're running a fair process right now in terms of just merit of application, how you scored on it, you know, the types of individuals that you have who have experience in certain areas that matters, you know. So I don't necessarily think that they're just like 100% hand picking who's going to get this. You know, I think that you had to have shown your ability to actually do it
Hmm.
in some form or fashion.
So, with regards to uplift, how do you approach educating African Americans about the industry? What's your methodology in terms of talking to them about, hey, this is not an easy task by any stretch of the imagination, and how do you
Right.
prepare them for basically what's to come, which sounds like
So
there's quite a bit of disappointment for a lot of people.
correct. And for me, you know, before education, like education out, educating out of the home. I think education in the home is what really where we really need to start. You know, and normalizing cannabis as a plant that has healing properties. That yeah, you can, you know, if you do this education, you know, if you do this, yeah, you'll get high, you'll you'll have, you know, some type of psychoactive effect. But at the same time, hey, if you can also microdose to figure out, you know, what your optimal level of medication is. And I think that that's what's lacking right now because we're still in PTSD mode from the
Mm-hmm.
war on drugs,
Mm-hmm.
and we're hurt. So it's really allowing African Americans to truly see that it's twofold too. The older folks on what cannabis actually is and what it can really do. And then number two, from the younger perspective is, you know, the system is not rigged, and you as a consumer are better off being knowledgeable about what you're actually consuming. And that's my biggest thing, you know, because we always have arguments about dispensary weed versus street weed, you know, and the major difference is the fact that you actually know what you're consuming. Yeah, there are reports, you know, that come out about different vape cartridges and all this type of stuff. Yeah, we don't know what the future of, you know, smoking oil is going to look like in terms of harm on our body because it's so new, you know. But flower in particular, you know, people have been smoking daily for years, you know, and it's just, like I said, it's just important for us to normalize what's going on and take just, it's chipping away at the stigma. That's really what it is. But then in terms of actually educating out of the home, my first thing is, one, you can't educate yourself on this unless you're in it. And the easiest way to get in this is to become a patient, you know, and see from that internal point of view, because that's the way that I figured out where the hole in the market was for Uplift to come in, you know, and it's all about just using that intuitive mind to figure out what needs to be changed, what can be better, you know.